Hey, Jay. Jay. Jay.
What?
We got work to do.
Yeah, I'm playing World of Warships. Yeah. World of Warships is the free-to-play naval strategy game where you command the most iconic and famous warships from World War I and World War II, recreated with stunning detail and accuracy. Build your fleet while participating in various game types while upgrading your ship's arsenal along the way. New players who sign up using my link below will receive an exclusive starter pack to get you up and running quickly by receiving 7 days premium time, 1 million credits, 300 doubloons, and the Tier 5 premium ship, the Exeter.
So what are you guys waiting for?
Start sinking ships with World of Warships by heading to the description below and getting your freebies. All right, so obviously I'm way past the actual launch time of this card. Obviously we're talking about the RX 6600 XT, the newest offering for the entry level. Actually, I don't want to call it entry level. I mean, they'll probably come out with a 6500 XT also, just like we had a 5500 XT. But this is kind of their more affordable pricing for RDNA2, which obviously we'll talk about here in a second. I'm late to this review because I wanted to kind of see how the launch was going to go. I wanted to see what the inventory was going to look like. Also, too, I wasn't willing to put the work I was doing on the build behind me here on hold even further to get a review of a fairly mediocre card done. Now, I saw the reviews. I watched a few of the reviews. I read some of the written articles, and I feel like that there was a really negative welcome for the 6600 XT. And that really got me kind of thinking about this objectively, in that obviously we are in a very interesting, difficult time to be a PC DIY builder. You're building it yourself right now. There are just probably tens of thousands, if not more, hundreds of thousands maybe, systems that are sitting there new, built, and waiting for a graphics card to be put in there. And I think we live in a time right now when people are desperate to where they will put just about anything that can generate an image above 60 FPS in their system just to complete it. And then later on, if things ever normalize or come back to normal, which is now, based on the latest news, looking like potentially 2023, before we see things start to look normal again, I think people will just put any old POS that they can in their system just to get it up and running. But I want to make sure that we look at this objectively and fairly, in that, what is the card designed to do? Is it doing what it's designed to do? And does it have any sort of value? So those are kind of like the three prongs that at least we kind of try and take a look at around here. So without boring you about a bunch of the specs, because you guys have obviously seen all of the specs, it is obviously a very, very cut down version of RDNA2. In fact, it is less than 1/4 the die size of a 6800 XT. If you were to basically put 4 of these next to each other, like in a square, it would not still cover the entire die of a 6800 XT. So it's clearly cut down. It does have RT accelerators in it. However, I'm going to tell you right now, before we look at the charts, that I did not even bother testing any sort of ray tracing with this card, because I do not feel that the FPS trade-off or the FPS hit that you're going to see on a card that already is as shaved down as this is worth the prettiness of ray tracing. If you want to take a pretty screenshot or something, that's fine. Turn it on, obviously. Who cares at that point? You're only looking at one frame that's not moving. But yeah, I don't think a card like this, or even something like a 3600 or a 3060 Ti or anything like that, should ever be considered a ray tracing card. With all that said, it's an 8GB card, which in 2021 is starting to become the limiting factor of a lot of titles, especially with titles that have ray tracing turned on, or any sort of high resolution textures and stuff now, like you're seeing in many of these games. An 8GB frame buffer, although GDDR6, and the faster Infinity Fabric built into AMD's RDNA2 is still probably gonna show its lifespan being shorter now with games that are coming out in the near future. So anyway, with that said, we compared it to the RTX 3060 Ti, not the 3060, because this is much closer to the price of a 3060 Ti, and depending on the model, even more expensive than some 3060 Ti's, and the 5700 XT. So we compared it to the previous generation's card that comes in at about the same price as this. Again, speaking in MSRP, I'll talk about pricing in a second. Let's just go ahead and look at the charts. You can see how compared to last gen's one tier higher card and NVIDIA's current offering at roughly the same price point. So unlike the 6800 XT and the 6900 XT, which gave very compelling performance competition to NVIDIA's offerings of the 3080 and the 3090, the 6600 XT fell short of the 3060 Ti in pretty much every single use case we threw at it. Now, we didn't use any production type benchmarks for this card because I also don't think the 6600 XT is a production card. It's just straight up 1080p gaming, which is what AMD was targeting. And to be fair, I started the test by only doing 1080p. But then I started looking at how high the FPS was in certain titles at 1080p, and I went, well, there's no reason why this card couldn't also be considered a 1440p gaming card, which obviously it's very capable of. Now remember, all of our tests are performed with the highest settings or near highest settings, depending on the title. Some titles, the highest settings turn on things like RT shadows and whatnot, so we disabled that sort of functionality. We also had no DLSS turned on for 3060 Ti, so there was no sort of proprietary technology of like Fidelity FX type function turned on with AMD, that was all off, and then DLSS turned off with 3060 Ti. So it was just brute force methods of gaming to see how the cores compare. Now the 3060 Ti, depending on the model that you go with, is about $399. Yes, I'm obviously aware of how screwed up pricing is right now, but if you live near a Best Buy and you're lucky, you can get a 3060 Ti for $399. The 5700 XT is a $439 card at the time that it launched. I remember when that card launched, you could get them for that price because we didn't have the extreme chip shortage, the extremely high Ethereum mining happening, and the extremely high demand of a global pandemic happening, causing the supply and demand to go completely flip-flopped. So this card right now, the Red Devil 6600 XT and the 5700 XT Red Devil, same model card, right, in terms of the naming, this is actually only $10 cheaper at $429. Now, yes, this card actually was available for $429 on Newegg, and it was available for $429 at Micro Center. In fact, when I started filming this video, they still had a couple of models available at Micro Center, or excuse me, a couple of these cards available at Micro Center with shipping. I think some by now was actually, they already refilled the stock. So Power Color was very, very communicative prior to this launch, saying we will have plenty, we will have lots, we will have lots, there will be plenty at launch. And then they sent another email going, I guess we underestimated how badly people wanted this card, we have more coming soon. It's like, you would think by now you would stop making a statement like, we will have plenty. Have you not learned, have you just not been watching? But anyway, I digress. I just didn't even respond to those emails because I was like, okay, bro. So this leads us to the current situation. If you're running something like a 5700 XT and you're looking at this card as being some sort of an upgrade because it has more CUs and yada, 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 and it has RT core or RT accelerators and whatnot, it's a side grade. As you can see on the charts, it beats the 5700 XT by a few FPS on certain titles and gets beat by a few FPS in other titles, and depending on the resolution, might beat the 5700 XT in 1440, but it might lose in 1080. It's such a ping pong match that it's a side grade. And if you have a 5700 XT RDNA 1 card, there is zero incentive to try and find this card. If you have no graphics card whatsoever, it might be worth trying to find. But again, a 1080p target at $429 is a really stupid value. There's no value there, but that's because manufacturers have realized we could sell a polished turd for $429 if they can plug it into their system and get their system running. And unfortunately, that's where we are with a lot of manufacturers right now, not giving you any sort of performance uplift at a cost decrease. That's why the 30 series cards would look so good on paper before the prices went crazy, because you had a massive FPS uplift at a dramatic price per FPS decrease. But if you look at the 5700 XT, and that's why we compare pricing tiers and not naming tiers, the 6600 XT is the same FPS per dollar essentially, if we compare MSRPs. There's no real uplift here, which makes it just putting lipstick on a pig of the current situation that we have right here, because you're not getting anything more for your money. You're just now grateful that you can buy anything, and that's a terrible place to be as a consumer. I don't think the card is terrible. I think it's capable of giving you excellent 1080p gaming and very good 1440p gaming at over 60 FPS in just about everything we tested, except some, I think Metro Exodus might have been the only one that was right around, I think it was like 58 FPS or something like that. It's just kind of lackluster, really. There's nothing exciting about it. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be, but I think that's because people are really jaded at this current time where we expected so much this generation from both families, and then we live in a situation now where you're just happy to get anything that boots. It just leaves not much left to talk about. The other thing that kind of sucks is if you look at the pricing on Newegg, this card looks like a hero card because it's the second cheapest card there is for the 6600 XT. And this is before scalping really kind of starts rearing its ugly head, because as soon as things are available at MSRP, which these cards were, and we'll talk about pricing in a sec on some of the other models, as soon as those are gone and sold out, that's when the price starts to go up. If you can buy it for near MSRP, the scalping opportunity is not there. Now that they're sold out, we're probably going to see a gradual increase in pricing, which is going to suck. The only card cheaper than this one was an XFX card at $399, which again is the Founders Edition pricing, which you can still buy at Best Buy if you're lucky for the 3060 Ti, which beats it in every single category. So my point is, if you were to walk into a store and you can see a 3060 Ti on the shelf, if it's there, and yeah, they are starting to happen now. I am seeing alerts of inventory in stock at various micro centers and Best Buys. It's taking time now for the pricing to come back down. And the longer they sit on the shelves, the more price will come back down. If you see a 3060 Ti and you see a 6600 XT, there's absolutely no reason to get the 6600. There's just not. The problem is, because there's no real reference like AMD available card for this one, pricing is all over the place. Because when I went on Newegg to research the pricing this card launched at, and because one of the other promises that Power Color gave me is that there were going to be so many available on launch day that scalping wasn't going to be an issue. That's the other, like, oh my God, that's a bold play, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out, right? Or bold move, Cotton, whatever. Strategy. It doesn't matter. It was a stupid strategy. Because I have a feeling that pricing is going to go up. However, $429 is what they sold at on Newegg. You can find 6600 XTs at nearly $600, not scalped. That's what the MSRPs were setting them at, or the manufacturers were setting their MSRPs at, depending on MSI card, Gigabyte cards, Sapphire cards, XFX cards, and depending on the model. So what we essentially have right here is the supply and demand situation has made everyone just completely fed up with the fact that manufacturers have caught on to, hey, like I said earlier, they will buy a polished turd if it will finish their system. So it's essentially like trying to do price comparison right now for us as reviewers. It's like trying to do surgery with a shotgun and be precise about it. It's impossible because everyone is just all over the place. We've got $300 swings between this card and the most expensive 6600 XT I could find. And you know what's sad about that? The performance between them is very minimal, the performance difference. So I went ahead and did this review because, you know, obviously if you walk into a store and there's one available, you need to know what you're getting yourself into. My recommendation, 3060 Ti outperforms this in the same price category. The problem is 3060 Ti's have been scalped now for so long. The pricing, trying to find a 3060 Ti at the price this was available at is impossible. As of this video, when we were searching, they were anywhere between $800 to $950 for a 3060 Ti, which is absolutely stupid. But if you can walk into a store and get this card for the price it's advertised at $429, then obviously it's a better buy over a 3060 Ti. I've never had to make so many caveat buts in a video about pricing as I have this one. Sound off in the comments below if you guys even cared about the 6600 XT. Is it a card you would put in your system, or are you one of those buyers that I just said that would literally put a turd in your computer if it allows you to play games today? Thanks for watching, guys. As always, we'll see you in the next one.